Week zero is here, and it's never too early to get some chaos started. We'll take a look at teams that are on upset alert in week zero. We'll also look at some bets, some general pick'em, and then a college fantasy football lineup to set as well. So let's dive in. We're going to start with the upset alert teams. On upset alert are teams that will pull off the upset, picking five of them every single week. So make sure you comment below who you think is going to pull off an upset in each week. Starting with week zero, the first one that I have is Jacksonville State versus UTEP. Now, at the time of this recording, Jacksonville State is a 1 point underdog, so not a huge underdog, but I think that Rich Rodriguez's rushing attack will be a huge factor in this game. I believe that the Gamecocks have a great option attack, and I think that they're taking a step forward in the FBS right off the bat. I believe that they are playing a UTEP team that is very talented, and I think, have done a lot of great things under Dana Dimmel. But this is a Jacksonville State team that is more talented. I believe that they have the better talent level, and I think that they will pull off the quote unquote upset here. We'll go to the next one. UMass versus New Mexico State. Now, for some of these, it's not necessarily going to be a upset. It's just that they will potentially cover. So with how I'm doing things, I can explain it later. We'll get points for covering. We'll get points for outright wins. Picking UMass versus New Mexico State. Now, I think that UMass is probably going to be a lot better than they were last year. Well, how much better, we don't really know. And beating New Mexico State won't be easy. And I'll give my prediction on this game later. But picking UMass, they're playing a New Mexico State team that is very good and coming off of not very good. They're just coming off of a year in which they had a lot of exciting things. Diego Pavia is an extremely exciting quarterback, but I really like what Don Brown is doing. So don't sleep on the Minutemen here. Ohio heads to San Diego State, and I believe that they'll win this game outright. I believe that they're a 3 point underdog right now, and I think that number is crazy to me. San Diego State loses a ton of talent. They are still not very proven in terms of the passing attack on offense. And Ohio is coming off a 10-4 season and has an extremely explosive group of skill position players on the offensive side of the ball. They also have good skill position players on defense. So the Bobcats, to me, are a team that will pull off the upset here on the road to get things started in week zero. Now, the game that it's hard when there's only 7 games, you only had a few to pick from. So it'll be a little bit better when we're looking at week one, week two, and so on. Hawaii against Vanderbilt, 17.5 point favorites. The Vanderbilt Commodores are, and they're going to be a fun team to watch under Clark Lee. Narrowly missed a bowl game in 2022, and now they are looking to start strong and against a Hawaii team that everyone I think expects to be better. I think under Timmy Chang, you're looking at a team that is headed for a bright future. It's just maybe not right off the bat. Playing an SEC team is very interesting. It's a tough matchup to start the year, but I believe the Rainbow Warriors are still underrated, and I think people are sleeping on them. Do I think they win this game? I don't think they're great chances, but we're putting them here to cover. And then finally, we're looking at San Jose State versus USC. Now, I don't think San Jose State is going to win this game. I do not believe that. However, 30.5 points is a lot. And for a week zero game where teams need some time to get things going, there's potential that this team could hang on. Now, the biggest question is going to be, what does this defense do against Caleb Williams and that USC offense? This is an explosive offense with a ton of talent. And if you're looking for more of a in-depth breakdown, you can look at the video I posted for that. But this is a team in USC that has playoff aspirations. They have the ability to make the playoff, and getting things started with a good performance against San Jose State would do a lot. There's a chance that they beat this 30.5. They cover, but I like San Jose State's ability to slow things down and keep things within that 30.5 point margin. So let me know who you guys think are pulling off the upsets, who's going to cover, pick those kinds of games, and we'll kind of follow along as the season goes. There's some teams here that are legitimately on upset alert, and we'll try to pick more of those teams that are actually on upset alert when it comes down to the rest of the season. But there are some teams here that will definitely cover, and you're looking at some that are slight underdogs, and then you look at teams like Hawaii and San Jose State that are more super dogs than anything. Next, we'll dive into some bets for week zero. There aren't a ton of bets that I like, and we're going to get things started a little bit slow, but that's okay. We only have a certain number of games, but we will get things ramped up in when the season begins. So we'll take a look at some of the teams that have had success in the past. And obviously, a new year means that the things will change, but there are some teams that I really like in terms of covering. We already mentioned one in the upset alert, so there might be some redundancy here, but Ohio against San Diego State is my pick for a good bet. I believe that Ohio will definitely cover, and I think that they will actually win the game against the San Diego State team that's going through a bit of a transition, and they obviously have some things to figure out, but it's still a solid team. Brady Hoke has done a great job of continuing that winning tradition, and Ohio is going to give them quite the test. So that is my first one there. The next one I already mentioned, I believe San Diego or San Jose State will cover against USC. I think 30 and a half points is too much right now, and I could be wrong there, but USC has an explosive offense. But I also believe that San Jose State is super underrated, a team that could give USC trouble and could hang around longer than maybe we expect. It's just a matter of what does that defense do to hang with an explosive offense. We mentioned Caleb Williams before. The pass catchers are insane for USC. The skill position talent really is just nuts. So finding a way to slow them down would be the key. The pace of that game will really dictate who will be the winner, who's going to cover and whatnot. So just like with the upsets, let me know what your bets are for this week. Make sure you comment below because this is going to be a fun way to start off the season. And we got a couple strong bets to get us started. Next, we'll go to pick, and we have 10 games we'll pick every single week, just straight up, no betting, no spreads, nothing like that. And it should be really interesting to see what happens in week 0. There's going to be some upsets. We know that. It's just a matter of who pulls off those upsets. We'll start with Notre Dame over Navy. This is a team in Notre Dame that has playoff goals, and whether or not they'll reach them is a big question. That's another video that I produced that I put out, Notre Dame versus Navy. So make sure you go check that out. Sam Hartman is probably the biggest difference in this game. We mentioned this in upset alert, Jacksonville State over UTEP. Like I said before, Jacksonville State's rushing attack, I think, is too much for UTEP to handle. I think UTEP's front seven is very solid, but I really like what Jacksonville State can do in the rushing attack. Next, another one we mentioned, New Mexico State over UMass. While I think UMass keeps this one closer, I believe New Mexico State is the more complete team, the better team, and a team that will be able to pull off the win. Even if UMass is able to hang around, this is still a team that I really like. I think that Diego Pavia is set for a really fun season. And if you're looking in terms of college fantasy, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Diego Pavia is someone who you get for a steal early on. Another one in the upset alert, Ohio over San Diego State. I just really like what Curtis Rourke and that offense can do. This is an explosive offense. 10-4 was a surprise last year. They don't have that surprise factor, so teams will definitely take them serious, and even more serious than they did at the beginning of last year. So that will be something to keep an eye on, but I believe Ohio has what it takes to pull off the win on the road early on. Vanderbilt's a really exciting team. I really like what Clark Lee is doing. I like what that program has going on for them. And this is a team that is looking to make a bowl game this year, and that program believes that they can. They'll get things started with a win over Hawaii. And even though I put them in the upset alert, I don't feel confident in Hawaii covering. I don't feel super confident in that. Obviously, when you're just limited to some of these teams, then you're just putting that in for week 0. But week 1 will be different. Vanderbilt is a very interesting team. You look at their passing attack with AJ Swan, Will Shepard, and you have some talented players coming in to buy into that culture. That's the biggest thing for this Vanderbilt team is that there's culture that's being bought into, and that's really going to help them when they're playing against the SEC competition. I'm picking USC over San Jose State. It's just a matter of how much they win by. There's no scenario in my mind where San Jose State wins this game unless Caleb Williams and a few other players go down with an injury. That is the only way I see that happening. But given that that's very unlikely, and even so, even if that would happen, there's still a really good chance that USC wins by a comfortable margin. Next, we have Louisiana Tech over FIU, the final FBS game of this week, of week 0. And I'm really excited to see what the Bulldogs can do with a rejuvenated and a kind of a new look in terms of their offense. Hank Bachmeier comes in from Boise State to play quarterback. You're looking at a bunch of skill position players You have Cyrus Allen and Smoke Harris out wide. You have Decoldest Crawford coming in from Nebraska. That passing attack should be really explosive. The rushing attack will be without Marquise Crosby, but they should be just fine with Jarvis Thornton. You have a couple other guys behind him as well that will contribute. Louisiana Tech could put up some big points against FIU, a team that really struggled and lost quite a bit of talent to the transfer portal. There are a few FCS games as well in week 0. First, we're looking at Mercer over North Alabama. Mercer is a team that is extremely underrated at the FCS level, a team that it'll be interesting to watch. North Alabama, a very solid team. I think this one could be a close matchup, but I believe that Mercer will pull out the win. If you're a team looking for an explosive offense at the FCS level, Fordham is your team. This is a team that's produced a number of explosive offenses in the past and a number of exciting players. Some hit the transfer portal and went to new teams at the FBS level, but I think Fordham is still a really fun team to watch. Albany is a team that should ring a bell, as Florida State defensive end Jared Verse comes from them. So that's a team that won't roll over, but it's just a matter of, do they have the firepower for Fordham? I don't think they do, so have Fordham winning this. And finally, the game that I think a lot of people are really excited about, South Carolina State versus Jackson State. I have South Carolina State winning this one. I think with Dion leaving and the number of transfers that they lost in terms of NFL talent gone as well, you're looking at a Jackson State team that isn't necessarily prepped for that special season. And I think South Carolina State has a number of good players returning. They have a more, I guess, continued talent coming back and chemistry that maybe Jackson State doesn't have. So this is definitely one that I'm going to keep an eye on, but South Carolina State to me has the edge right now. And finally, we're going to dive into some college fantasy. If you're into daily fantasy sports, college is a really fun way to get invested in some of these players that you don't necessarily pay attention to. It's kind of similar to the NFL. If you have a team that you're a fan of, but you play fantasy football, your ability to draft different players kind of gives you interested in other teams. So that's going to be another thing to keep an eye on. The lineup we have this week is pretty limited in terms of players, but I am really excited to see what some of these players can do. Caleb Williams obviously gets us started off. It's kind of hard to not pick Caleb Williams in this type of a league, a type of a setup. And with daily fantasy sports, you are able to pick a lineup, multiple lineups, if you will, and you get obviously a certain dollar amount to pick. So a guy like Caleb Williams is going to cost you a good chunk of your lineup, but he is definitely worth the price that you're paying. You look at what he did last year, averaged 33 points, fantasy points, that is, according to DraftKings. So DraftKings has a little bit different setup, but Caleb Williams is definitely someone to consider when you're picking this lineup. Sia Bangura should have a big week, even against San Diego State. Now, San Diego State's rushing attack isn't necessarily what it used to be, but I think that it'll still be a little stingy, but still Ohio is one of those teams that will get the job done. They'll be explosive. Another guy from USC, Marshawn Lloyd, the former South Carolina transfer, a great value at 8,000 to me. You're looking at a player who should have a major impact. It's just a matter of touches. You have Austin Jones behind him. If they use Relief Brown as running back or if at a wide receiver, touches will be hard to come by, but at that price for Marshawn Lloyd, that's a pretty solid price, even at the higher level. Mario Williams, his teammate, is someone who really you're kind of deciding which wide receiver is going to break out. That will be the challenge in terms of college fantasy all year, is which USC wide receiver will have the big game. Will it be Mario Williams? Will it be Dorian Singer, Taj Washington? I think that you have Brendan Rice even. You have lots of options. So that's going to be kind of a challenge. And at that price, Mario Williams, I think a lot of people really like and expect big things, but you just have so much talent around him that kind of makes things a little bit interesting. Jaden Thomas has an opportunity for a big game. And with Sam Hartman running the offense, you have a quarterback that can get him the football more consistently. It's just a matter of who's going to be that guy that steps up. So keep an eye on what Notre Dame can do offensively. Now, if Justin Lockhart is in fact still playing for San Jose State, this is a great value pick. And I think that even against USC's defense, there's some damage that can be done by San Jose State. So Justin Lockhart is another one, especially when you need someone of value. And then Curtis Rourke, it's kind of hard to not pick Caleb Williams and Curtis Rourke, two guys that can do it with their arm and can do it with their legs. So those are two quarterbacks that will be tough to pass on. Some other notables that you might want to consider: Hank Bachmeier, who we mentioned before in this video, could have a big week, especially in Sonny Cumbie's offense. In that scheme, this could be a high flying offense that puts up a lot of points. Austin Jones, we mentioned with Marshawn Lloyd, just a matter of touches there. Cedric Alexander, I think a lot of people expect to be an elite player for Vanderbilt, expect him to be the starter when it's all said and done. So he is someone that could see a lot of exciting players. Maybe another one within that backfield, the quarterback, AJ Swan, is another one you could pick. Wide receivers, Cyrus Allen, Will Shepard, and Brendan Rice all have good value. Allen is that big play threat for Louisiana Tech, someone who can really take the top of a defense. Will Shepard and Brendan Rice are more of that consistent big time player that's going to get a lot of targets if they're doing things right, but two guys to keep an eye on. And then Siobhan Cordero, another guy who can both run and throw. It's just a matter of what can he do in that defense. So if you have a lineup, make sure you comment that below as well. Make sure you let me know who you're picking, guys that you're keeping an eye on, and value picks that you might like as well.